back.
Welcome.
Welcome back to the lounge.
Lounge. Look, last month was pretty tough. It's okay. Here with your buddies now. It's all going to be okay. And Woolie, look at them. They've had a hard time. Give them some encouragement.
Yeah, man. Well, this is where we can again just take a load off. Things are getting pretty heated out there right now. But there's a nice little, again, like the gates of hell. When Rodin is just serving up you your drink. There's protection.
Yeah.
Armageddon can be happening outside,
and
but in here,
that person that pissed you off this week, me and Woolie were literally just talking shit about them. Like not a minute ago, Woolie, right?
And the best part is that they're not allowed inside.
Oh, they've requested.
They've tried,
and we're like, you fucked with our buddy. That it ain't happening.
Sorry, seats taken. You're sitting there.
Oh, beautiful. So
I'm excited about this one.
Yeah, okay.
This one's
today, Woolie, would you like to introduce our specific subject?
Well, so we're again the Intermission Lounge, the great place to just cover things that have been touched on in the past that we would love to go on, talk about more of, but like we need the right time and venue for it. This is one that you specifically were like, you know what? Let's revisit this one. I was like, oh, that caught your eye, did it? You wanted to talk about the first Slam Dunk.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, I should really watch it considering it was the first ever winner of the inaugural The Best Collection. So, yeah, I felt a certain responsibility to the podcast to consume this. And let me tell you, I have watched it in full.
Okay. And just to, and to give a little boost to young up-and-comer Takehiko Inoue,
I think,
just to give him a little bit of spotlight.
I think there's a certain inspirational story behind this film. Because, young Takehiko Inoue, like, he tried his hand at manga. And, he's known for three series, okay? 3 series. It's Slam Dunk, it's Vagabond, and it's Real. And that's problem number 1. Because when you think about all the greats, Woolie, it's not starting and stopping all these different series and like, oh, what's happening? It's Naruto.
It's not the word that comes to mind.
It's one story. Get it right the first time.
Where's your Jump publish? What are we doing here?
Yeah. And so with Inoue, like, it's all over the place. And then when a writer has more than one series, I don't know what's gonna happen. Is Musashi gonna show up in Slam Dunk? Like, what are we?
John, I've been to, I can't even count the amount of anime cons and gaming cons I've been to. I've seen one example of Vagabond cosplay. One.
Yeah, and what does that tell you?
What does that tell you, right? I mean, that tells the marketing team what they need to know, quite frankly.
Yeah, and you know my stance on art, Woolie. Like, if it can't be marketed, I don't want any part of it.
But there's a little spark to this kid, right?
Even maybe I said this last time. Even a broken watch strikes, is right twice a day. And there's the occasional little bit of Vagabond. Like, look, I'll say it. I'm not scared to say it. The 77 men versus 1. That was conceptually interesting.
It's cute.
Yeah, if not necessarily in execution.
Okay. Can I just pull a swerve for a fucking second here? I just need to pull a swerve because, dude, I was in Texas and I was at a comic book shop there and I saw something on a shelf and I'm just gonna pull just for a second because I have it right next to me. I saw a book on a shelf that was called Miyamoto Musashi's Book of 5 Rings Manga Edition, and I was like, "Ooh, what is this?" And this is a interpretation of Musashi's Book of 5 Rings according to some other team of people, and the energy of the characters in this is
Oh. Okay.
right? Like this is, and it's like taking place later on after when Vagabond finishes off, and it's this like interpretation, and it's the most shallow, just nothing ass Saturday morning cartoon interpretation.
So what you're telling me,
Musashi's
what you're
life.
telling me is that Inoue at some point probably picked up this manga and flipped through it, and he's like, "This is what I should have." God.
I mean, like, just this kind of
that's
protag,
Musashi. You know, who's the other guy with the beard and the hair? It just doesn't work. And that's a character I can get behind.
Oh man, and it's fucking like it's wild that this exists, you know. Just and it's the same source material, etc. So all that to say that exactly right. He had to face facts.
Yeah. So you know, clearly, just as a manga creator, Inoue's career, like just flatline pretty much. I think immediately. As a movie director. Better?
Okay. All right.
And scene.
So, let's go. Okay. The first slam dunk.
Okay. This was an interesting movie. So I had read the first 20 chapters of Slam Dunk and been like, cool. Awesome.
Oh, you've read it.
I haven't read the whole thing, just the first 20 chapters.
Okay.
Didn't continue it for no other reason than I got distracted and then forgot. You know?
Okay.
And so, very interesting to watch a feature film that basically spoils the entirety of Slam Dunk.
So it's kind of crazy because I had no idea. This was, again, my first Slam Dunk thing ever. And it turns out that this is the animated telling of the final arc of the story, as well as putting some extra details on focus on different characters, because the main character of this movie is not the main character of Slam Dunk.
The main character barely features, really. I don't think we even get a whole lot of flashbacks or anything.
That's crazy to me, because Ryota, the point guard, the main guy that we're focused on here, is such an central piece here, and he's got such a compelling story, you know, that I was gripped by. The idea that it focuses on Sakuragi, the redhead, the enforcer, like he's just like the new guy, so I can see him being like the perfect sports anime. I don't know what the rules are. I'm brand new. Who cares?
Which is such an interesting main character for a sports anime.
It is, but it's like a lot of the time the main character of a sports anime has to be the avatar for the viewer who does not know the game, right? There needs to be a reason why this person doesn't understand, and then someone can explain how the game works. And this is a trope you'll see everywhere, including characters who should know better. I mean, when the time serves when it serves its purpose, Solid Snake will suddenly become a guy who goes, "Huh?
Yeah,
Metal Gear." Muff, and he won't know anything, so that you can speak and extrapolate and exposition can occur. So, but in the role that he plays in this, like, you just get the goofball that just is full of himself and attitude.
You get just Dennis Rodman
foil. You get Dennis Rodman. Yes.
And like
100%.
Imagine writing a manga about the Chicago Bulls from Dennis Rodman's perspective.
Oh man, dude! You could practically hear that music, do 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 do. You know, when they're walking out. You know, yeah. So it does spoil Slam Dunk.
Yeah, the entirety of the series. Now, like, what I would say is that by the end of this movie, and I really, really enjoyed the movie, the strongest thing I felt was, fuck, I gotta go read Slam Dunk. Like, because there's parts of it, because this movie is covering a lot. So it's covering the final game, but we are also flashing back basically through the lives of a lot of the characters, but specifically this point guard Ryota. The whole movie is kind of built around his story.
Yeah. just from that opening shot, right? So I've always said, again, I'm like, Inoue's artwork is so fucking like just detailed and incredible. I don't know how you would ever adapt this into something animated and do it faithfully. And you see just him and his brother on playing on a court in Okinawa, and then it spends a couple moments showing you the brick and the stone built walls, and then the grass, and then the ocean, and you're like, oh, they're doing it, they're actually doing it. And he's just playing against his brother on the court, and he's trying to cross over, he's trying to get in, and he won't let him get in, you know. And he's like, it's this moment of like, oh shit, like if you zoom out far enough, like that is just two kids playing ball. Like it looks incredible, you know. And I mean, just in terms of like, it just, I guess the opening establishing of like, yeah, this must be so weird if you know nothing about this character, to then see his childhood here, you know, with that brother, and then like he has this kind of tough game against him, you know, and then he eventually, like when he does fight his way through after kind of almost giving up and stuff, he's like, when he does fight his way through, gives him a hug, you know, and he's like, remember this feeling, you know, and I'm like, that is something about that as the opening, I feel is like a really nice tone setter for how emotional moments are not going to be overdone.
Yeah, completely. And I feel like something about that felt so real. Like, as someone who doesn't have like any siblings, I looked at that and there was something so distinctly like brotherly about it, or you know, it could be sisterly as well, but like I looked at it and I was like, this feels like a very specific moment that could only happen between siblings. And I thought that was so fucking cool. And I keep thinking about that moment, you know?
And I want to like, so this is something that, again, it's everyone has a unique experience based on the life you've lived. And you don't have siblings, right? So there's an element that's very particular to how this movie captures the sibling relationship, in that there is a very fine line between like how you can show emotion without coming across too corny or being like, get away from me, you know? Like there's a level of like that. I mean, back in the day, it'd be like, oh, gay, you know, like whatever, if you'd be, you know, too sincere about things sometimes and stuff. But when something is like meaningful and you kind of like try to have a connection, you know, in a way, like, yeah, like there's a balance to it, you know, there's a way that
I think what it is for me is like the older brother is like hugging the younger brother, and the younger brother is completely spent after this fucking insane game, and his arms are just kind of down by his side and he doesn't know what to feel. And I was like, man, that's pretty fucking powerful,
you know. And it reminds me of kind of like whenever there's like some anime where it's like, oh, my little sister, we grew, like I gotta protect her, and then Nate-san, will you marry me? Whatever, you know, like, you're two, you get out of here, you stupid kid.
I look at that stuff and I'm like, man, fucking siblings are weird, I guess.
Well, it's like anyone who has a sibling sees that and goes, the person who wrote this doesn't have a sister. This is a fictional world of someone who they're not. right, but just like whenever there's like people, you can tell when someone writes a story where you're like, you don't know what it's like to grow up with another kid. You're clearly, you haven't, your experience here is not reflecting that, and this is the exact opposite of that, where you're like, oh my god, this
made me get it for a second, or like, you know, get like a particular instance of it. But being an only child is fucking, the older I get, the more I realize that it kind of, there's things, so like to me, an encounter with another person my age is always an event. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I didn't grow up with anyone my age like around constantly, so whenever I meet another person, like I'm meeting up with a friend, it's kind of like, oh yeah, like here we go, another person my age with my age. Yeah, anyway, another thing.
I learned about only children something early that was there's just there's an element of like when you don't have someone else that you're always around and have to share your time, space, and belongings with, you don't actually learn to share things. And so there's a lot of like selfishness that I like have dealt with from like friends I've made that are like grew up as only children, including as someone that I lived with for a bit, where it's just like, dude could not, like, I was a kid and he was growing up and like he had like a collection of all the Dr. Seuss books and all these books. I was like, can I just read this before bed and then bring it back? And he's like, no. And I'm like, I'm upstairs. It'll be like half an hour and I'll bring it right back to you. And it's like, don't touch my stuff. And it was just like this, oh, you've never had to share in your life. You've never learned sharing. You've just gone through the world in a way where you're like, what's mine is mine and I'm smug.
So,
sitting on my
what the fuck are you trying? What are you trying to say? What, like, you got something to say? Like,
I'm saying that some of y'all need to learn how to play nicely with others. You have to learn to share your shit.
So
man.
I would say
God.
The counter to that is I have encountered the exact same thing, but from people with brothers and sisters, and there's an element of like, I have to protect my stuff from you. And I'm like, and then I'm like,
okay,
why?
Okay.
Like, why do you need to? What's gonna happen? Because I've just never been through any of that, you know.
Okay, it all depends on the parenting, and the skill of the runner.
I mean, as you know yourself, Woolie, I'm quite a magnanimous, generous person.
So generous with your time. God. Yes, exactly. No, so anyways, I feel like that's an element of this movie that is captured so well.
And like, yeah, this isn't a moment that, you know, in a way, like, saw in another manga and was like, that's cool. This really feels like something Inoue pulled from his own life. And like, that is, I think, the kind of master level of someone doing a movie like this, you know?
Only to have a relationship like that, like it's a meaningful moment, but Ryota doesn't know that it's meaningful yet at all, you know. And you follow that up with the, man, fuck you, brother, get out of here, we're supposed to play, you suck. And that look that he gives him on the boat of just he just looks at him and that's it. And that's the last time you ever see it, you know? Like, God damn, you know? Like, I'm like, okay, we're starting strong.
Yes.
We're starting strong. We're invested.
And so, like, this is kind of Ryota's whole character arc in this movie. It's like, his brother wanted to be, like, a champion-level basketball player, and particularly wanted to either be or play for this team, Sanada. Is that it?
Sano was the greatest team, and he wants to beat them, right?
And this is actually, I find, like, a very typical story from a lot of Japanese media. X person died, and now I will carry on their dream.
Can I become the Kamina?
Yeah. And I have to say,
right.
95% of the time, this is not a story that resonates with me at all. I don't understand it.
Okay. So this, to me, I feel I like this type of story, and I like, as I've quoted, it's like the I'm stepping in to fill the shoes of someone else, and I'm like, oh, I'm ill prepared for it. It's there. I like when we get because the solution is you can't fill someone else's shoes. You have to be yourself, right? And you know, to Gurren Lagann, that you takes a minute, you get through that series, and it's an awesome version of that story. You push it further beyond. What is interesting here, and what really grounds can I step into the shoes that my brother was trying to fill and become that person, is that it's not just because inside you're trying to do it yourself and you're trying to achieve those goals and burning the memory on. It's you have a mother who is, in this case, like, it starts with them losing their dad. And then the older brother steps up and goes, okay, I'm going to have to be the captain for the family, you know, so to speak. And then he's gone.
Brutal. That's so tough.
Right? So, like, that level of, like, that mom has been through so much shit that, like, you're, like, you don't even have time to really even be a kid in the same way, because you're just processing grief your entire childhood, you know? And, like, he's pouring himself into basketball, like, as the way of getting over it, but also as the way of holding on to the memory, but also out of frustration for it. It's the only receptacle for this kid to pour himself into. And that mom is, like, the part that like her being her expectations is what I'd say kind of make this a little bit different of the like fulfilling the role, right?
Yeah,
Stepping into someone
I would
else's
say
shoes.
she added like this kind of jagged element to the whole thing where she's not really okay with him taking up the role of his brother. Like she's kind of furious about it, and like there's one scene where he puts on his brother's, I think it's his t-shirt or his jersey, and she just loses it. And it's a tough fucking scene.
It starts and it's like there's that, like, it's the tension that's already baked in of like, hey, you know, I think I should clean up his room now. It's been long enough. We should start putting some of these things away. And he's like, don't touch his stuff, you know? And then they get into like a physical confrontation where she's grabbing the shirt from him, like, take it off. And like, he's busted and he's got the mask and, you know, and it's just this like awful, painful moment of like a mom that's just lost her husband and her older son now, and like the younger one is there and he's trying to follow in that footsteps and she fucking hates it, right? And you know, and even jumping forward a bit, like she's kind of this like ghost of a person after that happens. And there's a moment where like when the main character here, Ryota, is being self-destructive and like crashing up against trying to again be the brother, step into that role, but he's not good enough. He can't play as good. No, everyone's talking shit. They're like, he's not a replacement. He's just not the same thing, right? He'll never be what his brother was.
Yeah, there's a really cold bit where he's on the court with another kid, and the kid's like, I played against your brother. You're not as good as him. And it's just...
He was better.
Oh.
Yeah, right? And he gets injured and he's out. And then he just carries that forward through school and shit. And there's a part where when he eventually is self-destructing, you know, he just rides his motorcycle into fucking traffic.
Yeah, oh, fuck.
You know? And, like, has this moment of, like, just kind of, like, waking up in the hospital. And, like, the mom is there. And it's like, again? Mm-hmm. There's one person left here. And again, you're gonna take him away. Like I felt so awful for her the whole time, and what she's gut wrenching, and that's an interesting wrench in the works to what is otherwise a familiar story. You know,
definitely. But yeah, it's like it was really interesting to see. So like, we're constantly cutting back and forth in the flashbacks, like back and forth to this game. But the actual game itself, there's like a completely different narrative playing out. And what I love, and I'm such a sucker for this in like sports anime, but like I guess any big like battle anime as well, where it's like, oh no, we have to fight the monsters. Like we have to fight the biggest, baddest people in this universe. And then from minute one, it's like, oh hey, we're kind of getting them. And it's like, it makes me like brace for impact, you know.
Yeah. Oh, we're doing it.
Yeah, that happens several times in Ippo, and every time it catches me. So it's the fight with Sawamura, I think, is the one where like Ippo is basically going up against a serial killer. And the first round, Ippo kind of bops him, kind of like, yeah, I'm doing okay here. And then from that point on, it is a nightmare of a fight.
Yeah, I just love so Sano has a coach that's just this mustached, cold dude he just takes a knee on the court, you know, and he just has his hand down on the court, and he's just like, let's do it by 20 points. We need to crush their spirits.
I was going to bring up that line. I love it. There's a certain kind of like, like he's not like an evil character or anything. He's just positioned as the antagonist of this movie. But I get such a kick out of villain talk. You know what I mean? And he's just like, 20 more points should crush their spirit. And it's like, fuck, dude.
You know, and you're like, but this is what it takes to win. If you're playing this hard, you're this by the book, you know?
But you know, like it's interesting because like, I feel like I understand where he's coming from, because like I feel like when you're fighting someone, like again, not to always bring up BJJ, but listen, I'm over my injury. I'm back for 2 weeks. It's all I'm thinking about. There is a point in a fight when you are controlling someone and they are still in it, and you are not going to get the tap. It's just not going to happen. But if you can grind them down enough and you can push them back to the point where they're like, fuck it. Then they're vulnerable. If you can get them down into...
Okay.
And, like, I feel that battle in myself when other people are, like, in control of me as well, where I'm like, no,
Right.
I'm not fucking giving this up, and I know I should tap in this, but I'm gonna fight a way out. And then I can feel the point where, like, fuck, I've been on bottom for 3 minutes, I am exhausted, I am claustrophobic, I am out of breath,
Right.
you know? And I like that push and pull was incorporated into this so early on.
There's a great moment that where I feel like you like the internal monologue and what you know is happening inside versus what you see on the outside is in stark contrast. Where Ryota is like, so yeah, he's the point guard, so he's dribbling up court, and we've just spent the last like couple minutes just focusing on how out of breath and sweaty and tired everyone is. Yeah. They're burnt.
And like I think the scores are still like
right?
They might even be ahead or they're even, but they're like, fuck.
Gassed, right? And then you kind of see him and he dribbles up and he kind of has this moment where like he's like, okay, and you know inside that they're worried and panicking, but you see him kind of stop, casually leans back with the ball, he kind of smiles a bit, and he's like, he does a little like, he calls a play, and he's just kind of like in control for a second, and you're like, oh shit, where's that coming from? And it's like, oh, that first game in the beginning of the movie when he's playing with his brother, and he's like, yeah, you need to, even you might not feel like you have the confidence, but you need to fake it until you do, right? Like you need to just pretend you're in control, like to just until you learn how to actually be in control, And like, so he has that moment of doing that, and it like for a second you're like, oh shit, he's doing all right, and you're like, no, he's not. He's not doing okay, but he's emulating that, and everyone else is like, oh yeah, he's got this, he's got it under control, and he absolutely does.
And it's interesting as well because like later on in the movie, they like Ryota keeps having these real intense encounters with the member of the opposite team, and later on in the movie they refer to like putting that player against Ryota as the body blow, because they wanted to wear him out for the second half, and it's like, fuck, man, that's so good.
Yeah,
it's funny you mentioned that as well, Woolie, because remember back in the days when I did taekwondo, one of the biggest things our trainers would always say is like, you got to smile during fights, because if someone hits you with their best and they just look at you and you're having a good time, that will push them. That will lean on them in a way. And I think he's right. Like, I get what he's talking about with that. Okay. Huh. Just keep up the errors, I guess. Interesting. Can we, I mean, if we could just talk about like visually the moments of like taking a highly realistic simulated game of basketball and explosive impact speed moments of like, we're dribbling, you look away for a second, I crossed you up. Yeah.
I'm
oh
gone.
Oh my god.
I teleport past you. What happened? He's halfway down the court.
The visual clarity at which they like communicate this shit. Like obviously it's 3D, so they can put a camera wherever the fuck they want. But like those moments read in a way that they could never read in a real basketball game unless you really know what's happening. And it's beautiful. I am so interested as well. I would happily watch a lecture in the tech behind the cloth in this movie, because every piece of cloth is reacting to the different characters, and part of me is like, that cannot be done by hand. Like, that's insane.
It looks so good, dude. There's, you know what? Every single time they do it multiple times in the movie, but there's all these moments where someone is going up for like a shot, or like they just take to the air and they look to someone for like a pass, and then they pass it the other way. Like I'm looking at you over here, and the camera's focused and turned towards you, but I pass behind me, and you're like, "Oh shit! Wait, where's the guy?"
Yeah.
And it gets me every time.
It's so good, and I think like there's such a specific timing to the editing beats of how they do that. Like it's like every little part of it, from the leap up to the glance to the right, to the pass to the left. It is all timed out that your brain has just enough time to process it, but they keep this hyper kinetic. It is something else.
And like one of the things that I just like, again, talking about the impact of things, whenever you have those moments of Sakuragi, the Dennis Rodman, when he grabs the rebound and just lands with the impact. I'm like, I can see the page. I can see the manga panel of turning to the spread of his feet landing on the ground like this is my ball, you know? And like that's his whole thing is like he doesn't know how to play. He doesn't know what he's doing, but he knows how to just be like, I'm holding this with my life. No one's coming near it, you know? And you get that like just that build up and then those moments of massive impact. And it's like, it's not being an unrealistic depiction of the sport, you know? I mean, God bless. Like, I love Ice Shield 21. They basically have superpowers.
Yeah, that is a battle manga, like, with the sport of American football loosely wrapped around it. And I also love Ice Shield 21. That is not a criticism. This is basketball.
Yeah. And like when those moments of like superpower tech occur, there'll be things like there's just like oh shit, Akagi's foot is on the outside of that guy's shoes. He's turned in. He's perfect opportunity to go in. And it would be a moment where they'd be like, when you put your foot on the outside, you're ready to turn and do a jump shot faster than but we don't have to do that, you know? Like they would cut. You'd imagine a moment where you'd cut to the coach being like, yes, he's doing the tech, and it'd take 5 minutes, but they just went, his foot's on the outside, go, you know? And you're like, oh shit, and then it doesn't work. You're like, oh okay, and like we keep it going, you know? I love how technical the game is, and you get the something I heard about when Inoue was drawing Slam Dunk is that all of his keyframes were referencing basketball cards.
Oh, whoa.
Poses from basketball cards.
I think there was some trouble over that as well.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay. Because like those are the most dramatic poses that spell out a story in a gesture, in a moment, you know? Like, and so like he would reference NBA like perfect screenshots of that to like, you know, convey basketball and did it to such a degree that, as far as my understanding is, like Slam Dunk basically invented high school basketball in Japan, is what I've been told. Like the league, the popularity of the league and everything growing there where there were no teams, they suddenly popped up. Slam Dunk is responsible for like creating this whole thing.
That is so fucking cool. My God.
Yeah.
I guess like the other thing about this movie is like Ryota is definitely the main character, but we are also getting like these little side stories from everyone else on the pitch. And like one of my favorite was Rukawa's, and Rukawa is like, he's the blue Oni of Slam Dunk, right?
Yeah.
So
cold.
He's your Vegeta, he's your Hiei, he's that character. And his whole thing is that he's basically the best player in Japan, except in this game, because he is going up against who they keep referring to as the monk.
Sawakita, the number one player in Japan. Yeah.
Sawakita, like he's not like an evil player. He's not mean, but he has one of the coldest burns. He's like, you want to be the best player in Japan? You can be when I leave. And it's like,
as soon as I leave Japan. Like just, oh, yeah. And he has a little, you want to talk about the backstories, right? They like the emotional, like resonance of cutting away from the game to give you a little bit and just enough of all of these players. As someone who got no knowledge of any of them beforehand, you cut away for Sawakita and it's like, what's his deal? And it's like, here he is at a shrine, just going like, praying for a challenge. Right? Praying for something that'll bring him to the next level.
Yeah, praying for the experience he needs.
Yes, you know? And you're like, okay, that's what the villain is looking for.
And like, for
you know?
the whole movie, he is fucking stomping. He is stomping Rukawa. Like, and it's kind of brutal, because even from the way Rukawa is reacting and the way everyone else is reacting, like, this does not happen to him.
Right. Something that I only learned after the fact too, that like, so those final moments of the game are so insane, and like they're silent. You're just watching the play happen, you know, in slow time. And one of those moments, so where Rukawa, so he's the one that you trust. You go to him every time, and he's always going to drive it to the basket. He's number one. No one can stop him. I'm going to play my game no matter what. He hates passing, right? That's his whole deal.
I think he just doesn't pass.
So that he never, and that's the thing is like, and especially against the new guy, he's like, I will never pass to you. I will never pass. I'm not doing it, right? So like, that's the thing of like, that's established. So I didn't realize that, especially in that moment, the first time he ever does pass is to him, is to Sakuragi. The new kid who's able to close it out. But the significance of the impact of being like, okay, we're a team, we're gonna make this happen, and he actually breaks his whole bit for that, to lead up to what is like, it's the sickest dap I think I've seen in any anime. The two of them just walk up to each other, pause,
and then get immediately pissed off that they did that.
And then 180 and walk back, But it's just that moment of like, I see you.
No,
I
that
see
was
you.
so fucking great. And not understanding that about Rukawa initially, I thought like without even overdoing it, I thought they did an excellent job of making you feel that he just fucking passed. Yeah, and it was awesome. This was definitely like a film that it took me. I was not in straight away, I would say, because I think for the first, I'd say half, I was enjoying it, but I was a little bit like, okay, now we're back in a flashback. Okay, now we're back to the game, and it wasn't flowing for me. But I think a big part of that is that I was unfamiliar with a lot of the characters and trying to remember who's who and who has what relationship, and because then like it starts going into Ryota's relationship with another person on the team. And, he has a problem with this long-haired thug guy, and then...
Mitsui, yeah.
But, like, when it all comes full circle, it all connects really beautifully.
Yeah, I felt that. I know exactly what you're talking about. In the middle, I was getting confused as well, because I couldn't tell the difference between Rukawa and Mitsui initially, right? Like, Rukawa is the small forward, and Mitsui is like, he's the shooting guard that's like the gangster, But when he had his haircut, they're kind of very similar, So I wasn't too sure. But like when you kind of see that shot of like him going from the long hair to the short, and then they go back to like the whole thing where like, Ryota dealt with bullying, like him just getting like fucked up on the school roof, and these fights that would happen between these kids and shit. And it was like, okay, I get where we're going now and who that is and what his role is on the team. And kind of coming back in and being like, he had potential, right? Mm-hmm. As a kid, he was the first guy that walked up to young Ryota and said, hey, man, you should try to play. You should play with us, But then he just fell into the wrong crowd, got out of the game.
I didn't put together that he was that kid at the start.
He was the kid at the start that was trying to get Ryota to play.
Oh, fuck. That adds a whole other layer to that whole story.
He had potential, and then he fell out of the game, and Akagi, who wants to take things seriously, the big guy, was like disciplined, and like this guy had no discipline, and he just fell in with the gangster crowd. And then eventually, when he comes back in, he's being contrite because he's like, all right, I respect the game. But he hates Ryota for reminding him of himself because he has the potential to play, but he gave up on basketball.
Yeah. I think, like, if there's one character I wanted more from, I think it's Akagi. Because I was really digging his, like, rivalry with the other big guy, and I was like, oh, fuck, I want to see more of that.
He got one really great moment. He gets two great moments, actually. One in the locker rooms in the past, when like you see his whole team is like, I can't wait to fucking leave. Good luck, Ryota. This guy sucks, right? What a disciplinarian, etc. And then later on, when he falls on the ground and you see the little devil on his shoulder.
Oh, that bit was so fun.
And he's like, hey man, you can stay down. No one's gonna blame you. We understand. And then he's like, it's the like give up demon. Okay, we know the deal. And he looks up at it, and it's like, it's not just the give up demon. He's got the face of the player that quit. That's like, oh, I'm sure the view from up there is really nice, looking down on all of us, right? Trying to carry your dream and force your dream on us. Well, we don't all want to do that. We can't do what you do, And he's like, God damn it. And you feel that, and he's just like, get the fuck out of here. We're still playing, Like, okay. You
know the guy who is Akagi's rival, the other big gorilla dude?
Yeah, the other big dude.
Remember I told the Ricardo story?
Oh, yeah,
That's the kind of build we're talking about.
Wow. Okay, huge dude. Yep. Okay. Yeah. And man, and that dude, like, it's so funny every time they just cut to him being like, "Huh, I'm impressed."
Yeah,
you know, like you've mildly impressed Zod.
Yep.
You caught Zod's attention. You know. Oh man, yeah.
So like, you go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say as even though like we're not spending as much time with the actual protagonist Sakuragi, the redhead, the moments you see of him doing things like, I have so much pent up energy, I don't know what to do. I'm gonna jump on the stands and go, we're the best, we're gonna win. Everyone's like, yo, get the fuck down, what are you doing? You know, or I'm gonna destroy my body, saving the ball and throwing it back in and crashing into the table.
Cool.
And you're like, what are you doing? Yeah. And it's like he's doing what a hardcore, I don't know how basketball works, but I just want to win Kyle style dude is going to do, you know? Like throwing his body at the game. Incredible.
So, like, you know, of course, like that early lead doesn't last long. And Sano?
The enemy team? Yeah,
Sano.
Yeah.
Sano starts pulling away and like they develop this 20-point lead. And I think the way they turn that gap into this fucking grueling Everest is so good. Like, even I was there being like, well, how the fuck are they gonna do? You know, like, I was like,
yeah.
And like, of course they're gonna, of course,
yeah.
But
the rhythm of a basketball game is I score, you score, I score, you score. So if we break away with it, that 10-point lead is going to, you know, like, we're in 10 points. We're not in 10 points. We're in 10 points.
Yeah.
We're not in 10 points.
Oh, God. Like,
you know?
So when they do battle back and get within 10 points, I think the other team scores a point, and it's like, it is such a gut blow. It's such a, like, oh.
So hard. Yeah, and there's that, and then you get your little, like, and again, your proper, like, NBA-ass moments of, like, okay, that gangster, Mitsui, Michan, he's dead on the court. He is a zombie. There is nothing there, but the only thing he has is his threes. Feed him the bucket, he'll land it every time. Feed him the ball, he's gonna land that three. He's an empty shell, but the arms go up, nothing but net, you know. And you're just like, that's all he's got right now. It's incredible, you know. Oh man. Yeah. And then of course, you know, the emotional resolution as well of like when Ryota like hits the beach, you know, and just like goes for that run, finds the cave, finds his brother's magazines, the shoes, goes through all of the things, you know, hits the point where they have a little birthday scene, and it's like, yeah, how old would he be? And it's like, I guess he'd be 20. I guess you're always the younger brother, even though you're now older than he ever was.
That fucked me up a little bit. That got me.
Yeah. Nah, man. I'm glad you enjoyed that, and it just I walk away with the exact same thing of like, holy fuck, I gotta read Slam Dunk.
Yeah, totally.
Like I didn't know, but I should have known.
Yeah, and like if we're happy to tie a bow on that movie, I think you know, personally to NOA we can say like, heck of a try, little buddy.
Good effort,
you know,
good effort,
you know,
really.
Maybe you can quit that day job.
There's something that his work reminds me of that I don't get in many other places. I get it a little bit in some, but very infrequently. I talked about it earlier. It's the muted, insanely heavy emotional moment. Because when real people in real life go through the most, like, traumatizing and or like impactful moments in reality, it isn't always this. You're like, a lot of media will depict it, and live action as well. Actors will act in a way where it's emojis talking to each other on screen. Yep. It's you can see the emoji in the script, you know, and this is not that. This reminds me of real moments I've had in real life where people are much more subtle about real shit as it's hitting. seconds after it hits, you know? Like, it's going to be a very small word. It'll be a sentence. It'll be that sister going, even though you're older than he ever was. And nobody goes, oh, there's no, it's just, she just says it. And then the mom is like, I think she's doing the dishes. And she kind of just stops, you know? And he's just sitting at the table with the cake, in the birthday cake. And then we just go to the, you know, and it's just a little pause. But like, you feel those moments. And that's what real life has been for me whenever I've experienced those things.
I think about this a lot, right? I think you go through points where, and do you know what I started thinking about this a lot with, specifically Magfest, right? Because we're at Magfest and like we're hanging, and this is like pretty much mostly every year. We're like hanging out and we're having a good time, and you know, like we'll have different people there. We'll have Lil V, we'll have Sudden Mango, we'll have just you know the whole crew, Punch Mom, too many to name, and you know it can get really like, okay, we got to go here, we got to do this, we're gonna meet this person, we're gonna yada yada yada. And it's only on the plane back from Magfest sometimes that I'm just kind of sitting there and I'm like, oh, I think that's like 4 of the best days I've ever had. You know, because sometimes like you're too in it and you need to like move past it and then process it and be like, oh fuck, I'm really going to carry that for a long time. And I feel what this movie does so well is it's like in the flashbacks, these characters are just going through it. In the modern day, it's not just that they're remembering these moments, it's like that they're really internalizing them and what they meant.
Yep. You're processing, you're digesting, you're internalizing, and you're taking what you can from those moments. And that happens so few times in real life, but what it does, it just hits, you know? The resonance of a conversation where, you know, towards the end he's talking to his mom, and like they have a lot of unspoken tension because of the brother, because of him leaving to go play, all the things, you know. And at one point she even comes to secretly watch him play and then leaves. He doesn't know that she was watching, but she actually allows herself to come in and, you know, just...
Yeah, and I feel like in any other anime, that's the moment where he's tired and the basket's there, but and he looks up and she's there and she gives him the thumbs up.
And she goes, hey, son! And he goes, Mom! And he's like, I'm gonna play. No! She doesn't tell him. She just quietly walks in and watches and she cheers, but he doesn't know she's there, you know? And then later on...
Oh, you go ahead.
When they meet up at the beach, she's like, hey, how was it? She's like, she acts like she wasn't there.
That makes it her moment and not his. And that says so much about her and what place she's at emotionally with all this stuff, which in turn makes all the shit he had to go through with his brother so much more painful, because it makes it all real.
You know? And so when he does sit down to talk to her in that moment, he doesn't go like, you know, he says, yeah, we won, all that stuff, whatever. But the main thing he gets across to her is, hey, thanks for allowing me to keep playing. Thanks for letting me play. I know you hated it. I know it must have hurt you every single time, but it's what I poured myself into, and it's the only thing I felt I had. And I'm so grateful that you allowed me to keep playing.
And you know, like, that's a powerful and subtle thing that like I have never really seen expressed in media. Because like me with my parents, like one of the things I'm most grateful for is just that they allowed me to do my bullshit. You know, like they never tried to dissuade me. They were like, don't, for the love of God, John, don't go into animation. John, for the love of God, do not throw away your career in animation and start a YouTube channel. Like, you know, like, and I feel really, really grateful to them that they never, ever did that. I've never seen that expressed in a piece of media except right here.
Right? And you're talking, and like, I mean, I've gotten that, right? I've gotten that from family. I've had to fight some of those battles of just like, what you're doing is just career suicide. This is insane. Your future is being flushed down the toilet.
And like they're not wrong, you know, like those are coming.
There's no template for what we're doing.
There's like no. Well, I imagine there's no malice in that. It's like, no, I think they are actually trying to protect you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you, Woolie, but when I look at our careers, when I look back at the beginning, I'm like, what a fucking insane gamble to take.
Of course.
Like,
of course.
Why don't we just go win the lotto? Why don't we go become rock stars? Like, that's what you're basically saying. And
combined with, again, the fact that, forget the beginning even, where we go from here is still uncharted territory.
Yeah, you still wake up every morning. What do? You start a fucking podcast, okay?
Yeah, exactly, right? But like, so that's coming from them, that same protective instinct that's trying to pull you out of the road so that you don't get hit by a car. It's trying to pull you out of the road so you don't get hit by a career. Yeah. You know what I mean? That like a dead end that's going to ruin your, you know, that's how they see it, because they're like, I don't know what you're talking about. None of these words make sense. You're saying you want to be a blurbenflurf as a job? What is that? You know, like, so it's just that level of like, this plus the loss of the family.
Yeah, and like, she is not good at hiding how fucked up she is at the loss of, you know, the other son. And that combined with the fact that she never tries to stop him playing basketball, it's fucking real, dude. Like, it hits hard.
So with all of that on its plate, I like when you do see a scene that does resemble a trope that you're familiar with, which is the I am now standing in my brother's shoes, right? The, hey, Kamina, you're pretty tall. Huh. Simon, you got taller than me, huh? When did that happen? In this case, it's the mom's she's at the funeral, and the brother would step up to go hug her and say that, hey, I'm going to take care of us. But now the older Ryota is walking past his brother, who was younger and shorter than him, who was the taller kid at the time. But now he's the smaller one, and he's just silently crying. And he's like, yeah, I have to do this now. It's on me. But it just hurt. It just hits, you know? I'm like, oh man, he's doing it. He's absolutely doing it. What a fucking awesome kid. I can't believe all of that happened in 2 hours.
I know. It was great. And like, I would also say, like, the last maybe 30 seconds of the match, like, just full on gripping the seats of your chair, leaning and like, it's so fucking dumb, because like, it's their last game ever. They're going to win. Of course they're going to win, right? But are they?
But what if? She's gonna say yes. You're at the altar. You've been dating a long time. But what if?
Oh, man. Oh.
And you're just hearing the silent ringing in your ears of the as they're just doing the final moment, you know?
So just for people who are not familiar, because this is some Woolie Eyepatch deep lore. One of the first, I would say, like, big conversations we ever had, Woolie, was we had both proposed to our now wives in a very similar window, I think. And just, we had this we met up at Magfest, and just the I remember saying to you, like, it was weird, because, like, we've been together for, like, 10 plus years, but before the proposal, I just got this, like, but what? And I didn't even finish the sentence. You put your hand on my shoulder and just go, yeah!
It's crazy. It's completely irrational, but it hits. It hits, you know? Yeah. And I just, and I kind of just, I love that note, you know, that we close out on as like, it's like, oh shit, where did these players go? Well, Sawakita, the number one player in Japan, he left Japan. He's playing in America now, you know, and he's starting up the game. He does an interview. He's like, yeah, I'm playing with a new team. Everything's going to be awesome. They get ready to start the game. Who's on the other side? It's fucking Ryota, so baby. Good. And he's in there. And he rushes the camera, and we freeze right there. Like, ow. Yeah. Slam dunk.
Look, I obviously this is a strong recommend from either me and Woolie, but even like if you've just listened to this whole thing and like spoiled yourself, look, it doesn't fucking matter. You are going to have a blast with this movie.
That's it.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like, The Last Dance was a big recommend for people that's like, do you know Michael Jordan? Yes, no. Do you care? Yes, no. It doesn't matter. This is a journey through an insane time that changed the sport, the career, and the world of like what it was like to be in the shoes of the dude who was one of the greatest athletes of our time, right? Like, you can get invested in the emotional stories here, regardless of whether you know anything.
Just straight up one of the best documentaries I've ever watched. Like
it's
just,
right?
I didn't know anything about basketball. I obviously that documentary influenced me to the point that I made probably the most ridiculous video I've ever made. In Space Jam.
Space Jam 2 is a lie. Yeah. So that you can that's it. So like there's a very clear like it doesn't matter what your experience with basketball or slam dunk is. I think I just recommend this film to anybody, period,
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments. Woolie, what would you say about taking a little old question or two from our patrons, unless you have any final thoughts on slam dunk?
Fucking run it, man. Hell yeah. Let's go.
I think we said it all. This is a really interesting...
Gorilla Dog!
Oh, so good! This is a really good one from Water Stealer. I like that name. I feel like that implies a lot.
Uh-huh.
Question. A lot of creators I know have that one project they've started/announced and never finished, and despite acknowledgement of its unfinished state, never have explicitly cancelled it or shown any progress of its continuation. What's your view on this? Do you think it's some kind of gimmick to keep the people attached with slim hope that them eventually finishing it, or something else entirely? Do you find yourself doing this, or do you actively seek to avoid doing this?
Oh, man. Okay.
So I would say immediately, I don't think it's a gimmick.
No. It's the complete opposite. Like, okay, as someone who has a lot of experience with canceled projects and like that, just things not coming to fruition, I have a big thing about like trying to finish every single LP that I start on the channel. Like I've had a big track record of doing fairly well with that. Not perfect, but because I know how annoying it feels when you have something incomplete and it just fades off. But there's been so many projects that I've never even started out that people haven't seen publicly that I've had to stop. I think that while you, the audience member, might be like you're trying to figure out why you feel the way you feel, so you might think like, oh, are they trying to trick me? But like it's the complete opposite. There are so many projects that like they don't finish and they never get canceled outright, because the creator is agonizing over how to get over the hurdles that are stopping them from finishing it, right? There are things where, like, you never know what it is. In some cases, it might be illness, like, I mean, Vagabond, there's a whole thing to just, like, he talks about the way he was feeling, and, like, he was he was drawing so much of himself into that was like, it was like destroying him inside to work on it. And I can understand, given the nature of the subject matter, that the way he interpreted it, and then the things that have to come, there's almost this like insane, like, you have to, there's so much of that story that's about like, what's the point of violence, to then only dive headlong back into it. There's this like dissonance that you have to come to terms with.
Brought like Musashi on this incredible character arc, and if he is to follow that story to its conclusion, he nearly has to undo it.
It's crazy, right? So I can understand this. He's like, it makes me sick, but it's not that they're trying to trick the audience. I think a lot of the times they're being too real, if anything, by like, they're thinking about the audience over everything else, and they don't want to fully let it go, right? If there's like, maybe there's you just keep working at it, you try to attack it from different angles. It takes time to work through things in your head. Like if you're familiar with the creative process, and if you've ever stumbled on something and then come back to it later and overcame that, you will know that, like, no, man, this is not a gimmick to keep your attention. This is not a string you along subscription to keep you invested, and maybe one day, like, that'll happen when filler hits a manga. That'll happen when a show starts stretching the story out to be like, you get 2 seconds of progress so that we can keep everyone employed for the next 5 years or whatever. But when it hits a hiatus like that, it's like usually the artist or the creator like really trying to overcome a hurdle that possibly has them suffering over.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think like suffering is inherent to creating things. And sometimes it takes a really long time to get over. Like I just put out a video that took me 6 months to make, and that's the longest time a video has ever taken me. And I hated that. I really, like, by the end of it, I really hated that it had taken me so long. But just creatively to get that video to the place where I wanted it to be what it could be, I kind of had to go through it, and there was definitely times where I felt like kind of just walking away from it, But it also gets like really complicated when other people are involved. Like one of the things that kind of like I don't want to talk about it too much, but like with Let's Fight a Boss, we had several incomplete projects by the time that ended. And a lot of the reason behind that was just very, like, mundane shit where it was just becoming increasingly difficult to get all three of us together in the same place. And then kind of by the time it just seemed like, fuck, like, I don't know that we can do this anymore. It just kind of... It's not something that I think there was really anything... How do I put this? Like, it was the kind of thing where it was just like... Things have just kind of drifted to the point that this feels like kind of where it's at, and we knew that we weren't going to be able to do it, so we're like, fuck it. I think we just got to leave it,
Yeah, there's something that happens in particular with video games too, where I feel like there's been stuff over the years that has been like, there's almost like no-win scenarios where there's like, okay, this is going to take a fuck ton of work to get to the finish line. You announce it too early, and then you have this like, where's Bayonetta 3 for 10 years, kind of feeling. You have this like, what, it's canceled? Is it canceled? Is it even going to happen? Right? You have Silk Song. We're currently still waiting because like the progression and the announcement and all that just happened in such a way that people are there from day minus a billion. So there's nothing but anticipation. And if they really like the thing, they're going to feel every moment that it's not here and every time there's a delay, in some cases, I get that impatience, and I know especially when they did a bad job by like announcing something too early that can make the hype get killed for a lot of people. But I also am reminded to just, in many cases, it's like, hey man, things just do take time sometimes, and I'm not like, it's not like I have any shortage of other things to play or my time is, you know what I mean? Like there's too much to consume.
Yeah, and definitely like the older I get and the more I understand, like not even just about like game development, but like creativity, it's like, listen, shit takes time. And there is a certain, like 9 women cannot create a baby in 1 month.
Is that how that...
I don't know. I don't know if I made that up or not.
Is that an original?
It might be. I don't know.
Okay. If that's an original, that's pretty good. That's strong.
Okay, I have to Google this because I have to know.
Yeah, that's a really good one. Oh man, yeah. No, I definitely just, yeah. Tell me what you see there. I'm curious.
No, it's not. It's not original. Damn it.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Well, in any case,
some motherfucker called Warren Buffett.
Ow! Shit! What does he know?
Nothing.
No. So the idea of like the game that like is just gonna take forever and stuff is I know there's sometimes where there's just that train of getting into the negatives on it, but a lot of the time when I hear a game gets delayed or something, I'm just like, yeah, it's okay, take your time. I'm looking forward to it. I'll be busy, and when it comes out, I'll enjoy it.
Like this thing, there is always shit to play, and like I've even heard a lot of people kind of like sort of like wringing their hands, being like, "There's not a lot of big releases this year." It's like, just play indie games.
Yeah.
Like just play them.
Yeah. No, so That's it. Just try to. I mean, again, it does make sense to be like, "Yo, Gabe, what the fuck are we doing with this Half-Life? You know, like what's going on? Like, yeah, you can go by half your life. Literally, half of your life has taken place before you see the next one, and you're like, that's crazy." Again, Silk Song was just meant to be free DLC that eventually became this long-running, insane sequel, but. You know, for other things, and when there's a Kickstarter involved, especially,
that gets tricky.
Right?
That gets tricky.
That gets really bad because now you've promised deadlines, and you have to keep up with those promises, and you've lied to people, or you know, and so it gets really, really rough. But yeah, in some cases, it's just an earnest like, yep, they're working on it, and I think those are the times to just like if you've kind of seen it from the other side a little bit, you might be able to understand it's not a callous thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think a lot of the time it's even just holding on to the idea of like, I'm going to finish this someday. They might never, but they want to.
Yep.
We got time for one more, Woolie?
Sure thing.
Cool. This one is from Raytheon? Apologies, buddy.
Raytheon. Oh shit! What do they want?
Who's that? Is that a fictional character?
Raytheon is the weapons manufacturer for the military in America.
Oh no! Oh no! Hobby/skill you wanted to get into but never really could due to the way life went. Musical instruments, scuba, baking, that sort of thing. Mine would be parkour/free running. I did it a bit, so at least I know from doing this the basics. But I am too scared of breaking every bone in my body. Also trespassing.
That's a good reason to not do it. Absolutely. Yeah. What comes to mind for you?
So for me, I think it's like. I think you need to be aware of when you like doing something versus the idea of being good at something, you know? And so for me, I would say I always loved the idea of being an illustrator. I love art. I love comics. I love all that stuff. But at some point, I had to kind of admit to myself that I do not habitually draw in the same way so many of the best artists I know in real life do. Like my friends and stuff, you know? And at some point, it's like, this is never going to be your thing. And rather than like freaking out about that, you got to just go find your thing. And I did. I found a few things. And like, I still draw, and drawing is like my thing that makes me happy. But like, I'm never going to be like a pro at it or anything, you know?
Absolutely. So, I mean, for me, I lined up on my quiver and aimed it as such so that I would be an artist. And that's not where the arrow landed. But it still was such a massive part of like where I went to school, what I did for like so much of my early life. And like a lot of those skills carry over to a lot of the work that I do today, that it still feels like it's relevant and present in what I'm working on.
I would agree with that. With my thing as well, in terms of like trying to make that journey taught me so much, and like I'm still so glad I did it all. But so maybe that's not a great example.
Editing, analysis, composition, you know what I mean? Like making a decent thumbnail. Like there's always a place where that comes into play, where it's a skill you're using.
I would say maybe musical instruments. I think, like, look, sometimes you try shit and you're like, nah, this ain't me. This ain't clicking. I played bass guitar in secondary school and high school, and it was fun. But, like, that's all it ever was to me, you know?
Okay. Yeah, I played drums.
Seriously?
I played...
If only there was some genre that incorporated both drum and bass.
Huh.
Woolie? Woolie! Hang on, I think I got our next venture, okay?
How about the one that actually uses neither, because it's all digital? Oh man, so I played in high school, and then from there I got my own drum kit. I took some lessons outside of school, and then kept practicing, and then I started playing at church. So I would take my drum kit to church, and I would play alongside the service whenever the hymns and gospel would start playing and stuff.
Did you ever do like a rim shot?
Oh God! And then God said, "Wait! Don't kill your son. I was just testing you." It was just a joke.
You were gonna.
You're about to kill him, weren't you? You were gonna kill him, weren't you?
We got you.
I saw you. Drum roll.
Okay, well, I don't think we're beating that.
Yes, I didn't continue, but drums was where I put a bunch of my stat points early on in life, and then they all got pulled when I respect. And if I ever could go an alternate route, I'd probably go heavy into that. There is a little flash too as well. That is, I've always had love for stand-up comedy, and I feel like if I wasn't on YouTube, I could probably be a pretty decent stand-up as well.
Okay,
but
I get that,
but that could just be a pipe dream. That might be bullshit. So I just feel like I could, but I don't know.
I have that with pro wrestling.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I could have been a good pro wrestler. And I did, and I did just enough of it that I knew I could do the physicality, but I also feel like I've done a little bit of it in real life. Like I know how to piss off a wrestling crowd, and I feel like I have a bit of an aptitude for that. Because like remember the last time I did a show, one of the biggest compliments I ever got was I heard them running down the schedule, and like I play a character called Leslie Bestington, and one of the organizers was like. Okay, we'll put this match on after Leslie because Leslie will get the crowd good and hot. And like he didn't know I heard that, and I was like,
nice, yes. Ooh,
yeah. But like
there
stuff
you go.
Like that makes me feel like so there was a point in my life where it was literally like crossroads, YouTube one side, pro wrestling the other. I don't think I would have been as successful pro wrestling. I think I could have made a good shot at it.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's so fun. I was like I was there when Brennan Williams was starting his journey into wrestling, before he joined WWE, when he left football and was just getting started, in Booker T's Row Wrestling League. And it's been so cool to watch the trajectory of how that goes all the way. Yeah, he flew to Uganda.
Amazing. I gotta
what a king.
A show, for sure.
Right? Mason Mansour. Yeah. No, I was just to say, like, good wrestlers and good comedians will actually make it look easy and trick people into thinking they can do it, right? So you have to get past that initial filter of anyone who sees someone who's doing it really well goes, I can do that. You cannot do it, right? So it's only upon closer inspection when you know how hard it is where you go, oh, fuck, can I do this? And I'm still inside, I'm like, I know how hard it is, and I still think I could pull it off. But that's another life.
I don't know. Like, okay, well, here's what I'd say. I think the boat has sailed for me on wrestling. I don't think I'm ever going to become a wrestler. You and stand-up, like, I mean, there's a certain amount of what you do now that would feed into that. But yeah,
you gotta grab a microphone and then start working crowds. You know, I'm gonna be making. I don't think the regular Just for Laughs crowd is gonna get Devil May Cry jokes. You know what I mean?
Okay,
I don't think
you just did a pretty fucking amazing bit on rim shots for the
for the Bible. Yes.
But you're totally right about the like they make it look easy. Like if you wanna fuck yourself up, get into a wrestling ring and try and run the ropes.
Oh man, Irish whips.
The most simple thing you have ever seen visually, trying to do it for the first time is the most brain like. How many steps do I turn now? Like it's
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
And look, Woolie, the bartender over here is saying it's closing time.
Okay, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. All right,
guys, listen. Thank you so much for the support on this podcast. We say it every time, but me and Woolie continue to be blown away by it, and it means a whole fucking lot. Like genuinely, it's always just so cool to see. And I hope it is apparent what a blast we have doing this stuff, and it's awesome knowing that other people enjoy it as well.
Exactly. Thank you guys so much. The feedback has been really good too as well. People are really enjoying these conversations, and I'm glad that we can just have these shoot the shit, little chats about whatever.
And occasionally get into stuff that maybe cannot be mentioned in a wider sphere.
But I'm glad we have a space to carve out some of these conversations, because goddamn, was that just a quick little mention in the first episode, but I'm like, I want to talk about Slam Dunk again, man. Hell yeah. Absolutely.
Okay, guys.
Thank you so much.
Stay safe out there. We love you. We'll see you next time.